Even if I get out of line.
Okay. Okay. Welcome to the Borough Council Budget Presentation Meeting. We could have the clerk read the statement of compliance, please.
This meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Law, duly announced, advertised, and posted in the municipal building. The meeting will adjourn no later than 10 p.m. unless a majority of the council members that are present vote to extend the time.
Could we overrise for a pledge allegiance and a moment of silence afterwards?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated.
I have to leave at 7 for CPR certification.
Okay. Could we get the roll call?
Council President Talamini,
Here.
Councilmember Eilert,
Here.
Councilman Pignatelli,
Here.
Councilwoman Rose. Here. Councilman Saliani. I'm coming in late. Mayor Kamala is on vacation. So.
Do we need a
Okay.
motion to
Yeah,
excuse both of them?
Yep. Well, is Steve coming? Did anybody hear from him?
I haven't heard from him, but
Well,
Okay.
I'll make a motion to excuse both of them if one shows up.
Okay.
He can just
need
say
a
here.
second.
Second.
All
That was you, Bill?
Yes.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. And just in case you were wondering, I was going to mention the mayor is on vacation, and I'm the council president, so I'm be sitting in for him for a couple meetings. All right. Can we get a motion to open the meeting to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone in the public? No. Motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd also just like to mention that we have Council-elect Matt Dumpert sitting here until he's here. He's participating, but he really can't contribute to anything because the election hasn't been certified yet. But we're just making sure he hits the ground running. So thank you. So all right, we're going to turn the meeting over to our professionals, and let's see what you got.
Okay, Council President, thank you very much. So I'm Richard Kunz, I'm the Borough Administrator, David Young, our CFO. So this is the first of two scheduled budget presentations. Tonight, you'll hear, call the main presentation, giving you an overview of the budget and our finances, and also hear from Peter Hobble from the library. Apologies, the schedule was supposed to be a little bit more balanced. Ariel Preciado, the Senior Center Director, could not be here this evening due to some family issues. So on Wednesday, you'll hear from the Senior Center, Police, Fire, and First Aid. So that one could be, what's that?
Not first aid, DPW.
Sorry, DPW, my apologies. I always say those as like it's all first responders. That one could be, rather lengthy, but we'll do our best to get through it. So with that, I'll get started. First, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background. Our budget process starts in September when I send out budget packages. Those are usually due in October. We then proceed to have meetings with the various departments and agency heads where we review their proposals in detail. Literally go line item by line item, look at history, look at trend, and eventually that goes into an overall document where we then consider, sort of the overall priorities and where we think they need to be. We then meet with the Finance Committee, review everything with them, get their feedback, look at where they think we need to be, and put together a final package to discuss with everybody collectively, which is what we're doing now. I can tell you that, things change. Things can change between tonight and final adoption. Things changed as recently as this morning. We were making some adjustments. So with that, I do want to express my appreciation to the department heads and to our agency heads. The instructions that I give them every year are to give me budget proposals that they think are required to, fulfill their obligations to the borough residents in terms of meeting services and delivering quality programs. And I think that after doing this for so many years, we really have a very good process in place, and they're very responsible with their requests, and that helps make it a little bit easier on our end too when we go through. And that's not to say that there aren't times when cuts get made from things that they request, but the starting point is usually very solid to begin with. Okay. So with that, I will say on behalf of the Finance Committee, we hereby respectfully submit to the Mayor and Borough Council the preliminary 2026 municipal budget for the Borough of Oakland. Funding for the current fund, including the library, is presented at $27,016,000, and there's an additional $3.7 million and $600,000 respectively for the water and sewer utilities. And you'll hear more about those budgets on Wednesday when you meet with the DPW. The municipal tax levy required to support the budget, excluding the library, would be slightly over $18 million, and that represents a 3.49% increase over 2025. Importantly, for some reasons we'll get into, this budget would be compliant with both the appropriation and levy caps. So as proposed, this budget will maintain all current levels of service, while also providing some enhancements in the area of senior services, including with the senior transportation program, and you'll hear more about that on Wednesday. When we get into capital, you'll see we're continuing our commitment to try to improve the downtown. There's streetscape money in there, as well as funding for our routine replacement programs and infrastructure maintenance programs as well. When we take a look at the budget, we're not just budgeting for this year. We take a look at, we project out, we take a look ahead several years, because I say more than ever, as if they were new things. But councils used to have more flexibility before the levy cap came into being. Okay? The appropriation cap and levy cap, you always have to keep that in mind as you're looking into future years, so that you don't negatively impact services by doing something this year that can cause a cap problem in a subsequent year. So we're always looking at that as well when we're formulating the budget and where we need to be, not just on the appropriation side, but where we think we need to be with non-tax revenues as well. Okay. So if you see anything as we go through here, just type up, ask a question. That's fine. You may find a typo or two, despite our best efforts to proofread this today. And with that, I think we can get going to the tax levy. David, would you like to talk about the tax levy distribution?
Sure. Just to make sure everybody's reminded of the fact that the total tax levy, the bill that Anissa sends out to all the residents every year, we collect for the town, we collect for open space, the regional school, the local school, and the county. What we're talking about tonight is the 25% that you have direct control over. And the library, which you don't have direct control over, but it's still included as part of what we consider the municipal levy. And that 25% is pretty standard. It's what we've seen here since I've been here 7 years now. It's what you see in the other towns that I work with. That 25% is about normal for what you have in terms of the municipal levy. Numbers for the municipal and the library that you see there in open space are actuals. We'll estimate the county, region, and school levies until we get them. We'll probably get them shortly after, or maybe shortly before we do our final adoption.
Okay. Let's talk at a very high level about appropriations. As I'd mentioned, budgets are broken down between inside cap and outside cap expenses. I won't get too much into the weeds with that right now. The inside cap expenses are up about 2.66%, while outside cap expenses are up about 4.44%. Grants you're going to see there are down 50%, but just a reminder there, grants get booked into the budget as they become awarded throughout the year. So it's routine to see a starting number less. This number will undoubtedly change as the year goes by. You're going to see there at Oakland Public Library an 11.55% increase. That is set by statute. And by that I mean there is a formula that the state applies in determining the tax levy for each library in the state. Okay, that's nothing that we have discretion over. You can provide additional funding. You cannot reduce that levy amount. Okay, this budget does not provide any supplemental funding for the library this year. And then you have the reserve for uncollected taxes, which is what we call a non-spending appropriation. That is basically money that we need to appropriate because we're the collection agent for all of the taxing entities, the schools in the county. And once their levy is certified, they get 100% of their levy. We get what is left over. So this is a mechanism that the state makes us employ to make sure that they can get made whole and we're actually collecting enough tax revenue.
That's a formula for that, or are you just based on last year's, or?
It's a formula based on the last 3 years that we have to be compliant to.
Okay.
We do an accelerated tax sale here, so we collect all of our tax money in the calendar year. We don't wait until next year to collect taxes. So our rut actually is fairly low considering the size of our total budgets for the town and the schools. But it's by formula we have to comply
Okay,
with.
thank you.
So when you just compare amended budget to proposed budget, total numbers, appropriations are up 2.7%. And I want to point out a couple of things with that. If you exclude grants and exclude library and you just look at what's driving the current fund, it's a couple of things. Police salaries, simply because, when we get into that, you'll see on a percentage basis, it's fine. It's a large budget. It's a large item of expenditure. Really, the issue this year is on health insurance. That's up $440,000, about 16%. That alone represents about 60% of the increase in appropriation. Right, so we would be up something less than 2% overall if it was not for that.
And luckily, we're not in the state health insurance, right?
So we'll talk more about it, but yes, we look good. I say we look good by comparison.
Okay.
Okay. Overall state health, for towns in the state health benefits program, their increases were 36% and up, depending on the mix of plan designs that a particular town was utilizing. I think in Hillsdale, it was
42%.
42%.
$655,000 increase, and we're about 65% the size of Oakland. So it's significant out there in terms of the impact that has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It's only 16%.
Right. Well, and I'll tell you, that really, there was a rather prolonged period of time where our healthcare premiums were increasing at the rate of inflation or even below. Probably a good 5-6 year period. So if we were having this conversation 3 years ago, I think everyone would be in shock over these numbers. But this is the second year now where you have these really elevated percentage increases.
This is health insurance for employees.
This is health insurance for employees.
Employees and retirees.
Yeah, right.
Retirees is starting to be a fairly significant chunk of that expenditure. Not quite 50-50 yet, but it'll be there in a couple of years.
Yep. Excellent.
Rich mentioned the caps that we have to be compliant to. There's a levy cap law. It's based upon previous year's levy plus a 2% increase. There are exceptions for things like debt, capital, pension, and insurance. We're also allowed to bank, so if we don't use our full allowable amount, we're allowed to bank it for 3 years on the levy side, and we are compliant to the levy cap. In fact, if you want, you could spend another $900,000 and we would still be compliant. So if you see anything you want to increase, CFO salaries, anything like that, just let us know and we'll be happy to help you out with that. On the appropriation side, it's a 3.5% cap that we can do, and you passed the COLA resolution to allow us to do that. We can bank that for 2 years. And similar things are excluded in terms of insurance and LoSAP and library and grants and capital. Again, we're compliant, so we don't have any issues on the cap side.
So when you say 2% levy cap,
Yes.
as a 2% on the amount that we can increase our budget,
No.
Increase your
2% on
tax
the
levy.
amount that we can increase.
tax
the
levy,
municipal
the tax
Yeah.
bill or whatever to the
Yep.
people.
With exceptions.
Okay, yeah.
That's how we can manage to be at 3.4 on the tax levy with a 2% cap, because the biggest increase, as Rich said, on the insurance is considered outside of
Okay,
cap.
because we have no control of that.
But it's based on a formula in terms of where the state increase is. So as long as we're better than the state increase, most of the insurance increase goes outside of cap.
Okay, distribution of expenditures. Just want to, this helps give you some sense of where the money goes, sort of in what buckets. And there's any number of ways to slice up the buckets. There's another slide we have behind this where we do it in a different way. But I think this is instructive. If you take a look at salaries and wages and pension and insurance all together, personnel costs represent about 57% of the budget. You primarily control that through labor negotiations. So on a year-to-year basis, you don't have direct control over a lot of that expenditure because you've already committed to certain cost of living adjustments for a number of years out. You basically control that through headcount, okay? And this budget has, fully staffed. We're not proposing any cuts anywhere in this budget.
One more item. This distribution of expenditures pie chart, is this what we publish to the residents? We've done it in the past.
Well, we typically point out the tax levy distribution one, but this entire presentation will be on the website.
Thank you.
Okay. And then you can see what our operating expenses are, our departmental budgets, how much solid waste makes up, as a percentage of the overall budget. Why don't we focus on that? And then, capital and debt, which collectively is, maintaining our infrastructure. So that comes in a little over 16%. David, anything there?
No?
Good. Okay. And here's just a different way of sort of conceptualizing how we spend our money. A little over a third, 36% on public safety, almost 20% on public works. That's operating costs for public works, and then another 16% on all manner of capital items. That's projects, that's roads, that's stormwater infrastructure, that's replacing vehicles, maintaining our IT systems. It's all of that. Core government and finance is about 10%. You can see the distribution from there regarding senior services, library, land use, et cetera.
Thank you. That makes a nice presentation there.
Okay, right. So the next three slides are kind of the meat and potatoes. So just bear with me.
It's like Thanksgiving. We got meat and potatoes, we got pies.
Yes, I know. And after the meal, you're all going to be tired because it's a lot of numbers.
We just need coffee and donuts.
But I'm going to take you through each of these that give you an overview of what's changing and why. Okay. So the first slide, this is all of our salary and wage budgets. Top line number there, taking everything into account, salary and wage budgets are up about 3.4% over 2025. Again, the library you really can't affect, and they're really not going up. We were able to, starting at the bottom, and then I'll go back up to the top and work on my way down. Accumulated absences is an appropriation we do every year that we put into a reserve to fund employee payouts of accumulated time when they retire. We've done the analysis now a couple of times and taken this out probably the next
Take it out 5 years.
5 years.
Who's likely to retire and what's their likely payout going to be, and make sure we are fully funded.
Right. So based on that analysis, it was higher a few years ago when we had a number of police retirees with large payouts. Based on the current 5-year projection, we feel comfortable reducing that amount based on the amount that we already have in that reserve.
Actually, when I came on the council in 2005-06, any payout came right out of the general budget. So it was a heavy hit sometimes, a couple of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And that's how the reserve started.
Right.
Basically, there was one year where there was a large payout, and the next year we just said, all right, well, we're going to keep funding this. It's there already, but we're going to start reserving the money and putting it away.
So it's just,
we don't have that hit.
it's like a
going.
savings account
Yes,
that we have. All of our trust funds are like savings accounts.
Yes.
We put money aside so that when the bill comes due, we pay cash rather than having to float a bond.
Right. So you exclude that too, and it gives you a little bit of a truer picture. On the current fund, salaries and wages are up 4.1%, which again is roughly in line with COLAs, which are at 3.5%. On the white and blue and blue collar and non-union workforce, it's 3.5%, or I think it's 2,400 this year, whichever is greater. So that bumps it up a little bit too. So going through, we sort of put this into different categories by function. So if you look at the general government overall, that's things like the clerk's budget and the mayor and council and my office. Overall, that's up 1.1%. For finance, that includes finance, tax collection, and tax assessment, is up 10.8%, but I want to point out almost half of that is due to a new shared service agreement we have with Pompton Lakes for tax collector services. If you remember, we entered into that at the beginning of the year. So that is outside cap, but the number there is reflected in that increase. It's offset with revenue that we're anticipating from Pompton Lakes pursuant to the terms of the shared service agreement. So there's really no tax impact on that.
It's really not anticipating, it's revenue we're owed based on the shared services.
Yes.
Yes,
We're not
well,
anticipating revenue, it's just when we collect it.
We've been staring at the budget, and that's called anticipated revenue.
that's the official word.
We know we're getting it, because we know where Michael lives.
Yes,
Yeah.
Just make sure we're clear about it, they said anticipated, we're getting it. It's not
yes,
when.
we are. Right, and that's one of these terms, like do you say surplus, do you say fund balance? Anticipated revenue is just the state term for non-tax revenue.
I know,
essentially.
we've discussed it in the finance meetings, but if people are watching at home, they don't understand that.
No, we got it.
Okay. Land use, that's planning board, zoning board, environmental commission, and code enforcement is up 9%. That's sort of a temporary, if you will, increase for code enforcement. A lot of that is driven by the Lennar project and proper staffing for that, both inspectors and some impacts on the office staff as well to keep up with the processing workload of all of that. You'll see that come down in another couple of years when that level of inspection activity declines, because the project will be completed at that point.
We'll just use it for another project.
Well, depending on what's in the pipeline,
Yep.
right? But the way we have it structured in terms of existing staff that can work more hours, or we can bring in outside inspectors if we need, we can be flexible enough to accommodate the needs, because there are deadlines for inspections and plan review set forth in state regulations that we have to comply with. Okay, so it's not like we can say, well, we're not going to provide a heightened level of service and you're just going to have to wait for your permits. No, you got to do plan reviews in 20 days. You have to do inspections, I think it's within 72 hours. So there's a certain service level there that the state wants towns to provide. And this is in order to remain compliant with that.
The fees that we're getting for, permits and stuff like that, does that help towards are we?
Absolutely, we
Yes.
anticipate that revenue. And right now, it is actually feeding surplus, because we're getting in more fees than we'll anticipate, because we know over time, we're not going to have that peak where we're at with Lennar. So right now, that peak is feeding fund balance, which we can then anticipate in surplus down the road. But there is a full offset. We have to report annually on UCC revenues and expenditures, and the state wants them to be within a certain range. And they also understand the occasional ones where it's going to be way out of whack.
Okay.
Short answer, Russ, yes.
Okay, public safety, that's police, the shared service agreements that we have with the schools for special law enforcement officers, OEM, flood control, and the fire department as well. And the salaries and wages there are up about 2.6% overall. The police department salaries and wages accounts for basically all known personnel movements. We had a police captain retire, police chief retiring later this year. We have another ranking officer that is likely retiring. So we've We've anticipated that. We funded replacements in here as well to keep staffing headcount the same, although the number of effective officers will vary throughout the year depending on who's in the academy, when they come out, when they complete field training and the like as well. And that also encapsulates any required step movements, longevity increases. All of that is built into that number. For the fire department, the increase there is kind of twofold. One is an increase to the clothing allowance line. I think we anticipated more people being eligible for that for this year, and also a potential increase in the firematic officer stipends, which is not increased in some number of years. Now, unlike most positions, this is something I think where you may need to adjust the salary ordinance, which isn't a problem. But as part of your deliberations here, and coming out of that, you guys can make a decision whether to, increase them this year or not. That's just kind of a follow-up discussion we need to have. We built in some money here in case you wanted to do that.
Well, also, maybe conversation another time. So we're increasing as needed. Are there towns who actually increase it on a yearly basis due to COLA? Or do people plan that way?
For fire department, I really don't know.
I haven't seen that or experienced. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it makes some kind of sense to
So
do
you're
that.
always
but-
planning for it. It's not a surprise, right? It's a way to attract more personnel.
Right. I mean, that's a discussion we can have in the Public Safety Committee and bring something back for full council discussion. Okay. DPW, this is several divisions, streets and roads, snow removal, vehicle maintenance, buildings and grounds, stormwater management, and solid waste and recycling. Again, water and sewer are part of DPW, but they are funded separately. They're not part of the current fund. And again, we'll get into more detail on those particular budgets on Wednesday. Their budgets are up 5%, and this accounts for DPW being fully staffed. Again, with any planned, promotions or anything like that taken into account, as well as the contractual COLAs. This also includes a $15,000 increase for snow removal, salary costs, mostly overtime costs. If you take a look at the long-term history, our snow removal budget is relatively flat. We have this storm response reserve, where if there's a balance every year, we sweep that into the reserve to fund years like this. But it's been some time since we've sort of incrementally increased the snow removal budget. And I think based on expenses this year, I think it's time to start doing that. I don't think we need to catch up all in one year, but I think incrementally we need to sort of reset what that level amount of funding is for the snow removal budget.
We're not going to have a big snowfall for another 10 years, though. 96, 206, 260.
You just jinxed us, Pat.
We
Yeah, now we're gonna have one tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
We significantly used our reserves
This
year. I mean, we hit that really hard. Salt, as well as the overtime. And we used a good portion of this year's budget already as well. So we won't be replenishing a whole lot of that into the next year. So it is kind of important that we increase this one, because I think we're going to need to get that back up, because it's not just snow. I'm not going to say the F word, but if you have a flood, that comes out of there as well.
Correct. Correct. We also used it.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to think I was using a different F word.
Well, and I'll use the P word, pandemic. We use the storm response reserve, and the state let you use that to cover any COVID-related costs as well. And having it well-funded enabled us to avoid doing special emergency appropriations the way a lot of other towns had to do. So again, having those sort of separate savings account helped us manage through that without any sort of additional negative effects on the
So we're
tax
still
payer.
calling them trust funds, or no?
Yeah, it's a reserve.
It's a trust, yeah. It's dedication by
Yes.
right or trust that you guys have approved.
And the problem with not having that, whatever debt you incur goes right into your next year's budget as an expense.
If you have a special emergency.
Before you start
Emergency,
anything,
then
yeah.
it gets funded inside cap next year.
Yep. So it's great that we have these trust funds.
It is.
Yep.
And so the plan is just to, the next couple of years incrementally increase it,
Get
so
get
it's,
back to where we're comfortable with it.
I think we'll have a better handle once the season's finally over.
right.
And can do a longer-term analysis, but it was pretty clear from what we were seeing that we should start now and do it in a way where, again, it isn't a huge
Sure.
cost driver, but it's something that we can build in over a few years, possibly. So, okay. Next section covers health, rec, senior services. Rec salary and wages up. Basically, there was a promotion that you gave to an employee last year on a partial year basis that, in addition to a COLA, there's a, you're picking up the second half of that in this year's budget. And for senior services, big chunk of that increase, as you'll hear from Ariel tomorrow night, is a proposed further expansion of our transportation program. Okay. Last year, you agreed to fund some additional money for that. And based on the response and the demand, we think an additional expansion would be well received by the community, and really, we think it's needed.
Great, that's one of my questions. So I was gonna wait
Really
for
good
that.
service.
Yep. Okay. We're a third of the way through. Okay. All right, this is the, call it the departmental OE budgets. This is other expense. You can think of it as operating expense. So this is where the money goes for all of the consumables and supplies and services and contracts that we utilize in providing services to residents. All right, general government here includes, things like administrator, communications commission, general services, which is a variety of things related to, office expense lines and copier costs and like mayor and council OE budget, clerk, and elections. There's two items I want to hit on here, both related to the clerk. The big one is for the special election that was just held. The final costs are not in quite yet. We do have some invoices. We've been able to estimate out what the personnel costs are going to be. There's $35,000 there to cover all of those costs of that election. As the saying goes, that is what it is. Those are the costs that we're responsible for. Unless we have a tie in November again, this will be a one-time allocation that we'll be able to remove from the budget next year. Okay.
You can change the order to flip a coin instead of going.
Yeah, right. I'll supply the coin.
Okay. And I think that there probably was some benefit in being able to have it the same day as the other referendums in the county. Because the original estimates we were getting were 50, 60, something $1,000. So I think this,
Probably about a quarter of the cost was, right? I think we split
more than
it
half.
four-way.
Yeah, but we still have to pay for all of our own poll workers and
Okay.
and things like that. Okay. And then the clerk OE is up $4,700, but there's actually another one-time expenditure we'd like to cover this year. It was something we deferred last year, and that is to engage our codification company to really undertake a full comprehensive review of the borough code. They go through it and look for any outdated language, for compliance with statutes, so we don't have things that are no longer compliant with state law or federal law, and maybe they'll flag things that are just not used anymore. We do things like regulate licensing of bicycles, and we have a horseman's advisory committee still on the book. And let me tell you, that's not unique to here. Every town, unless you've done a codification very recently, you have these vestiges of the past sort of that stay there.
No more slaughtering of pigs in downtown.
No. But it's about $9,000 to
When's the
undertake.
last time we did this?
We have not undertaken that level of a review since I've been here,
And that's 20 years?
18. A matter of fact,
Excuse me, I read it up.
18 in a couple weeks. So yes, it would be money well spent, I think, to be able to do that. So, So there's money in there.
So the money to do that, is there actions that cost money? So once we get that done, obviously there's going to be actions. So there'll be additional costs. This is just for review. Is there additional cost to implement any changes?
There would likely be codification costs. We already have some of that built into the clerk's budget normally anyway.
Okay.
Whether we did that one-on-one or sort of an omnibus ordinance that cleaned up a whole bunch of provisions, I think that'll depend on how substantive versus how technical some of the changes are.
This seems like an AI kind of thing. Is there, like, would we be able to purchase software that could do something like this? Or is it, you know, that the company has to do this? And
The proposal that we got was from General Code. Now, whether they're using any AI tools to aid them in that, they may be at this point. But, you know, they have experts on their staff that are versed in this stuff. And, you know, if you've worked with AI, you know, you have to check AI.
Right.
You need somebody that has the knowledge to be able to check things like that to make sure it's correct. So I'm not sure that that's something we would want to undertake on our own.
okay.
You throw the ChatGPT and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, your parameters are wrong, the algorithm is wrong.
Right. Okay, finance, that's pretty much almost flat amongst everything there. Land use, two things I want to point out here as well. Planning board is up by $30,000. That is another one-time, or what I'll call a periodic cost. That is to fund the planning services related to a redo of the land use element of the master plan. So that's to engage the planner to be able to undertake that effort this year.
That's something we must do, though, right?
Periodically, you have to re-examine your master
Right.
plan.
It's time.
It's been some time, especially with, you know, you just did the housing element, and it's, you know, it's been a number of years now, I think, since it was last done. All right. Construction code enforcement, OE can be reduced by almost $40,000. We had actually amended the budget towards the end of last year. We switched software for code enforcement, moving from a company called SDL to GovPilot. Basically, we had to advance the contracting and the licensing of that. So last year actually picked up kind of like 2 years in 1 year. But since this is against the amended budget, that money comes out now. Just the normal annual cost is actually in the IT budget. So public safety covers, again, police, 911, OEM, flood control, first aid, LoSAP, fire department, all of those budgets. Many of them are staying the same. Police OE is up by $33,500. The bulk of that, it'll be interesting to hear from our IT coordinator on Wednesday night. The bulk of that is IT related, and he can get into the weeds with you about what all of those items are. E911 system, police department and I started discussing last year whether it made sense to move our our emergency 911 system from its current provider, which is Central Dispatch, that's Ridgewood and Glen Rock, over to the county because the county doesn't charge. So the police chief looked at it and is proposing that we move over. That reduction basically reflects moving over by the end of the third quarter. I think it was time to properly do that. There would be further cost reductions in the 27 budget as the rest of that would be able to be removed.
And that's just 911, that's not dispatch?
Correct. That's not, right, that's 911 dispatch.
This is already Ridgewood. That was just going to
Right.
Wawa.
Correct.
And we had looked at it once before, but it didn't work, or for whatever reason, we didn't do it.
I'm not sure that.
Not for 911, I don't think we did.
Looked at
No.
911.
No,
we
that
talked
was
about
county dispatch.
We talked about last year, Russ, but there was a timing issue that Ridgewood.
No, I
rectified.
thought even before last year.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, because when we had gone on a tour of the county facility, and we were talking about moving things, but we just never did. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure if at that point or not it was free.
Okay,
That may have played into it as well.
all right.
It may have been, I don't recall
Okay.
exactly.
I remember going on the trip, that's all.
That's true.
It's an impressive facility.
Yeah. It's like War Games. It's a movie.
For those of us old enough to remember the movie, yeah.
Well, they do rerun it every once in a while.
Unfortunately, everyone here understands that.
Understands that, yes.
Maybe that doesn't help you.
Okay, Public Works. Big story here is the reduction in the solid waste budget of $204,000 by virtue of our new shared service agreement with Pompton Lakes that starts in the middle of the year. So that has half-year funding basically at the rate we're paying in '25. Then the reduced rate funding for 2026. When you take that into account and other changes in the solid waste budget, it nets out to a $204,000 reduction. So the solid waste budget, it doesn't only cover collection, it also covers operation of our compost facility, principally money for tub grinding material and permits and the like, and also disposal costs as well. And there was a $6 per ton increase in the cost of disposal. That's by contract. We have a shared service contract, a co-op contract with Wyckoff and Franklin Lakes. Gata is our disposal company, and that runs through 2027. And there are just planned increases in that contract. So I think we have another similar type increase in 2027 as well. But it nets out to a reduction of $204,000 for the year. And then sort of under the social services component of our funding, health, recreation, access for all, senior citizen services, there's some proposed increases for senior center programming, again, that Ariel will get into with you on Wednesday.
The rec decrease, when we moved it off budget and onto the trust last year, we did put some money in last year's budget so we could make sure there was no tails or anything that we needed to fund as they worked being a trust where they get to spend as they go as opposed to being on budgets. That's why you're seeing that $6,000 come out there. It was something we put in as a one-time, make sure they were okay. Now we're just taking it back out. Yep. The net on the OE, if you take out solid waste and library, we're talking 1%. $48,000 increase in a time where we're looking at significant, year-over-year COLA increases or CPI increases, depending upon what metric you're going to use. So I think the departments did a really, really good job of looking at the budgets, finding places where they can save money and do things differently to come in at that kind of number.
Yeah.
That's really pretty tight in terms of budgeting.
That's a very good point, Dave. Like, people don't realize the library cost that's mandated. It hits their bill, and we'll get questions as council people when the tax bill comes out. There's an allocation for library, what's the formula? So appreciate you calling that out.
And Peter does a really good job in terms of using those funds. The library building, I think, is technically something that we're also required to maintain. But he does a good job of using any kind of money he can to fix the air conditioning, do those type things. So he's a really good partner in terms of spending that money well.
We won't steal any more of his thunder. He'll be here in a minute.
Wednesday, right?
Tonight.
He's here tonight.
Tonight? Okay.
Yep. Okay, now we have what we call the non-departmental OE, or miscellaneous expenses, which seems like a throwaway, but there's a lot of budget cost here in these items. So they represent about 69% of total OE spending. All right, so again, taking it from the top, information technology is seeing an increase, but there's a couple things going on there. Again, there is a little bit more cost for the code enforcement software compared to what we had previously. However, that has some nice features there that when they're fully implemented will allow us to better serve the public. There's a payment module that'll facilitate purely online permitting, which we weren't capable of doing with the old software. There's also a GIS component to that software that will give us an in-house GIS solution, which we haven't previously had or haven't really been able to procure in sort of a cost-effective way. So those are things that we're looking to, sort of build out and implement as the year goes on. The other thing with IT is We've invested in some software through our finance system, through Edmunds, to better manage escrow. So there's a module cost that gets built in, and there's also, I think, $3,000 of one-time startup costs for that module as well. And then there's some one-time costs as well as we transition everything over to .gov for security purposes. And I know David's a big fan because of everything all the changes we're going to have to make on that. But again, another one-time cost there that you shouldn't see next year. Legal OE is down $15,000 from the 2025 amended budget. This was one of the line items we were still sort of looking and tweaking as early as this morning, but I think we're pretty comfortable at that $235,000 number, understanding that despite adopting the ordinances that we needed to preserve our immunity last week, there will still be ongoing legal costs related to affordable housing and various and sundry other issues, labor costs and the like as well. And moving on, the big number, insurance. So property and liability, that's actually up sort of a trend or an inflationary consistent 3% after being a cost driver the last couple of years due to changes in the marketplace when it comes, and in the regulatory sphere when it comes to things like workers' comp and property damage due to storms and the like. But then the last couple of years, it's been health insurance. So this year, the budget would go from approximately $2.6 million to about $3 million and that's the current fund net cost, right? Because there are charge-offs to the water utility and the library as well, and that's $422,000. I do want to point out that originally, the fee increase, the assessment increase was going to be about 21%, right? And there's always, outside of the assessment change, there's always some changes due to, is somebody single and they're getting married? Are they married? Are they having a child? Are you replacing somebody who's retiring and now they're going on retiree benefits? Is the person you're replacing them with waiving coverage because they're still on their parents' coverage? So there's some of that normal sort of churn that affects this too. But the assessment, the rates themselves were poised to go up 21%. The changes that we made as part of our contract negotiations with the employees going to more cost-effective plans actually helped shave about 5% off of that increase, and that's why you're seeing a net there of about 16%. So.
If I may for a second, how do we ensure that deceased people are not on our insurance any longer? Because I know that happened in one town I worked in, which remained anonymous. Someone had died 5-6 years earlier, and they were still paying for the health insurance.
We check that fairly regularly.
How?
You can Google. We actually ask for updates as part of the open enrollment process every year.
Okay.
So we endeavor to make sure that we have a current, accurate list of enrollees.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, utilities. We are able to effectuate some nice savings on the telephone budget now that we're fully implemented with Ring Central. That's just lower cost than the system we've been using previously. Street lights are up about 8%, just pretty much based on trend. And our overall electricity is up, we project up about 4%. There was an increase last year too, I think, right, when there was the bigger mid-year.
Last year they had the rate increase. This year we're being hit with the service line increase.
Service line increase of all of that.
3/4 of the bill, it seems like.
Right. And vehicle fuels are up, we project 7%. That $150,000 number originally was $175 last year. When we did a budget transfer, we had reduced it to $150. Looking to put some of that money back in simply because of, one, our fuel usage this winter has been higher than it has been the last several years, just more road miles driven with heavy equipment. as well as the recent unrest, we'll call it, in the Middle East, driving up fuel prices. That will have a budget effect on us, and a more pronounced budget effect the longer the prices remain elevated.
And the streetlights, have we continued to work on with the Orange and Rockland to replace the old ones with
Yes.
with LEDs and whatever? We just, yeah.
Yep. What we've seen is that there really is not much of a savings. It's not to say that you don't do it, that it isn't environmentally friendlier, that they aren't longer lasting. But if you look at the actual pricing, what you save in electricity
Paying more.
consumption, you're paying more on service fees.
And you know, it's funny, you notice when, if there is a problem with the LEDs, they tend to flash. And so now they're more annoying than
Like a
just
strobe
being
light?
out, than being out. Now it's a strobe, and it's, yeah.
Yep.
So.
Okay, next section of the budget is pension and Social Security. And this is actually a good news story for this year. A couple of years, this was up by like, what, 10%? As recently as a year or two ago. This year, it's up 1% to 2% overall, very manageable. And again, the way you control your pension obligations ultimately is to control, head count, because it's also set by formula, if you will, by the state actuaries in the Treasury. Every year they, the employee rates are consistent in terms of what you pay as a percentage of salary. The variable part of that comes into what the municipalities have to pay. So that, it increases or decreases a little bit each year. And fortunately, there wasn't much of a cost generative effect on that for 2026. Moving on to capital. Capital Improvement Fund has a 1% increase in it of $25,000. We'll talk a little bit more about capital shortly. Ideally, we would have liked to have been able to increase this somewhat more to keep pace with inflation. But given where we are with everything else in the budget and taking the direction from the Finance Committee as well, we felt that we could substantially accomplish our capital plan with keeping it to this and utilizing some of our capital reserve as well. Right. Bond principal and bond interest. We have no short-term debt, so there's no note interest, no note principal to be paid. Our bond principal matures fully in 2029 will be the last year of that. And principal and interest account for about $2.2 million in spending, and that's pretty consistent, as you can see there, year over year. The special 5-year emergency, 5 years ago, we did the revaluation, a little bit different than the annual reassessment. The annual reassessments that we do are an outgrowth of doing the full revaluation. So there are annual reassessment costs in the tax assessment OE budget, but because a full reval is somewhat more costly upfront, we were able to, it's one of the items that the state lets you spread out over 5 years. They call it a special emergency, but it's basically just saying, okay, you have 5 years to pay off that cost in your budget.
That drops off next year.
Yeah, this $40,000 will be the last payment of that. And then we have reserve for tax appeals. Again, one of the things that we've been seeing a bit with doing the annual assessment program is it's decreasing the number of tax appeals and the amount of tax appeal judgments that we're getting. It's not to say that we don't have any. You engage a professional, you engage a tax appeal attorney. There are expenses there to defend the borough in litigation, especially on the state tax court matters involving commercial properties. But overall, our tax appeal reserve is well funded. And given the ongoing costs and what we see right now as our exposure to being, we felt that we could cut this back a little bit, as we've done from $55,000 to $35,000 a year.
And that's really with the whole reval process, right? I mean, because we're revaling everything
You're keeping up with your assessments.
You're keeping up, so nobody's really being shocked.
I have to excuse myself. I have that mandatory training, CPR, at the first aid squad, so
Thank you, Pat.
I will go through the rest of this at home, and if I have any questions, I'll stop and speak to either.
Thank you, Pat.
Please go,
Rich.
Pat.
We'll see you Wednesday night.
Oh, wait, yeah.
Yes, you was. You thought you'd catch me, didn't you?
And
I know,
just-
I can see it in your eye.
Just a point of order, we never recognized that Councilman Saliani entered the meeting. Just, okay, thank you.
6:02.
And listen, wait, I run a tight ship. I'm not like that Kamala guy.
Did you see, I don't remember doing that now anyway.
All right, so miscellaneous OE, again, driven largely by health insurance, is up 4.5%. Total OE is up by 3%, again, a little bit under trend for inflation over the past year. So, all in all, not a bad result given the overall economic circumstances. Next slide, capital, okay. So this too, you're going to see broken into a bunch of different sections. We will have time to get into this in as much detail as you want, either as part of a budget hearing or because you will be doing a capital ordinance as part of a discussion at a regular council meeting as well as we go through the budget process. Okay, so we don't feel like we have to dig into all of this tonight. I want Peter to be here by 7, so he is, and let's take it going. But what you see there is a variety of things there. I'll take it, I'm not going to go through every single one tonight, but I'll hit on some highlights. Under admin, equipment, and improvements, there are upgrades there for certain tech items, what we'll call a service life extension for our network, computers, some network switch replacements, some security cameras. The big item there would be a complete, really move away from having low-band radio infrastructure in the town. We were able to secure an Assistance to Firefighters grant program. It's an AFG grant through the federal government for about $335,000. That funds a portion of this. Really, it funds the radios for the fire department, that component of it. There's other pieces to this. But the nice thing here is $1.1 million between the grant and what we're proposing to fully fund. We would not incur any debt by transitioning that radio infrastructure. All right, and that includes new pagers for the fire department as well. The Senior Center camera project, we have a grant in right now with AARP to help fund that up to the allowable amount of that grant, which is $15,000. If we get that, we'd like to fund the rest of it through the capital program. This is a request that's been deferred a number of times as we've sought grants repeatedly for this. But the idea here is that much like we have a camera system in this room, we would have a dedicated camera system in the senior center so that when we do special meetings, like if we had that, we could have done the planning board meeting in their normal meeting space in the senior center. We've had other public presentations there. It would allow generalized recording of senior programs too. So if you have homebound seniors, it provides them, even if they don't have the internet, if they have cable TV, you could broadcast it on channel 77.
Would these be like fixed cameras? I mean, we wouldn't need a whole room like we.
No, it would be tied in remotely here, and there would be things like this, like pan and zoom type cameras and the like.
It makes it easier to do too, because right now when we do that, we have to move cameras back and forth.
Right.
Right, you're setting up equipment, we've used iPhones, sometimes the audio quality isn't what you want it to be, so that's something we're looking to do.
We got town hall meetings there from our so it's bigger space.
Right.
But the OCC would still be running the meeting from here.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Yes, all the control stuff would come back. I'm sure I'm sure Ryan can let you know about that for sure.
Again, that's a benefit of the fiber optic that we did over the last 2 years. That you now
No, that was
connect
good.
Be able to use.
Yeah, that was good planning.
We actually had some affordable housing meetings last year at the senior center, which we were able to do with broadcast.
Right.
Right. Great Oak Park basketball courts, that is our latest grant. So if you look there, it says grants and aid, other funds, $300,000. That would be a $150,000 grant from Bergen County which we've secured, and we would look to use the Open Space Trust Fund for the other 150, so we could accomplish that project without using any general capital money at all, which would be a nice thing to be able to do. Then a bunch of, say, standard sort of equipment
And
stuff
just,
for the fire department.
Great Oak Park is still running through rec. Is that, it's always going to run through rec? It's, I mean, is that?
That's the plan. I mean, obviously, the Arts Committee also uses it and coordinates, but as we sort of transition, now we no longer have the Great Oak Park Committee.
Right.
So, you know, when it comes to projects now, it's sort of looked at in the same vein as upgrades to the main complex,
Okay.
or Truman Field lights, or the like, when we're talking about what amenities to add, where to add them, things of that nature.
Okay.
One thing I want to point out there with the fire department equipment is an increase, or a proposed increase, if we can swing it, to the replacement of fire apparatus. As you know, we try to pre-fund the purchase of our fire engines. For years now, it's been $200,000 a year. I wish that the equipment itself was flat in price year over year, but it's not. And if you've heard us talk about this, you know, over a year ago, when, if you recall, we placed an order for a piece of fire apparatus at the end of 2024 to avoid a $75,000 hit, which would have been a 10% cost increase. New York Times has run stories on this too, about consolidation in the fire apparatus industry that's driven up prices as well as lengthened lead times, because they haven't increased capacity to match. Long term, we need to start increasing that $200,000 to something that, as you project out, is going to, again, meet your funding needs. So this is sort of the start of that you're seeing by saying, all right, we're going to jump up from 200 to 250. I think there's more work to do on the analysis and getting current pricing and where we think the trends are in order to project out where we may need to be over the next several years. But you know, it's clear from what we're seeing, the $200,000 a year isn't going to be sufficient going forward.
I think I remember reading, like, it was similar to our garbage contracts, that, like, there's only one company that's making fire equipment.
There's been a lot of consolidation. So before you had small, I mean,
Sure.
you're making fire apparatus, right?
Yeah.
But family-owned type businesses, small privately held businesses, a lot of those have been bought out by private equity firms, consolidated. You may have one holding company now that, you know, controls 3 or 4 different brands in the industry.
Right.
So yeah, there's less effective competition there than there used to be as well. Okay, DPW equipment, we can get into, but we typically replace 2 pickup trucks a year. And then the dump truck salt spreader, we have the full allocation in there of $230,000. We're also looking at the cost to refurbish the unit, basically do a frame-off restoration. So that cost may come down. That's sort of a high-end price, assuming that we buy a whole new unit. And then the annual road improvement program. This we would use the D word, debt. We would incur debt for this, which we think we have a long-term plan to take care of this in the short term, meaning to extinguish this debt in the near term as soon as we're done paying off the bond. And we're working on a couple of things where hopefully in 27 and 28, we wouldn't need to incur debt for the road program, but that's what it looks like it's going to be for this year. So you have a modest road program, and we're also funding $300,000 worth of downtown improvements to extend the streetscape rehabilitation, sidewalks, standard lighting, and other things you've specified in your streetscape ordinance that we adopted a couple years ago. So all of that would result in almost $1.2 million of bonding. So you would see something that a couple of you have never seen, which is an actual bond ordinance if we do this, right? We've done fully funded capital ordinances. There'd be a separate capital ordinance. There'd be a separate bond ordinance as well. You okay?
Sure. We will not do long-term debt on this. We will retire that debt
Debt.
within the next 4 years.
Yeah.
So we've got a
Right,
plan.
short-term debt.
We're waiting for money to come back from the government on Patriots Way Bridge. When that comes back, it'll go into the reserve for debt service, which will allow us to retire debt. So we're,
I feel your angst.
yes, we have some debt on the books this year.
Yes.
But I expect to be the last time that you put that on the books.
I'd have the angst too if I didn't know that we had a plan to retire it in the short term. So, because I think that we've been very good about finding ways to fully fund these road programs over the last several years. And then the
Are we
other,
cutting back the service on the road program? Usually we're at 1.1 million.
this is a bit smaller of a road program. Now, we do have $100,000 or so left over from last year that'll be used to supplement as well. And if you sort of look at it holistically with the downtown improvements and stuff, it's not that far off, but in terms of actual lane miles, it's a little bit less than what we've been doing. Yes.
And
But also when you take into account what the county's done, what PSE&G has done and doing, you look at the overall mileage that's getting repaved, well, I think we can cut back a little bit this year.
Has there been, have we done an evaluation? I mean, like, was the winter as bad to our roads as I would think it was?
I haven't seen an evaluation yet. I know the crews, I think, have already been out, well, cold patch. I'm not sure that we're doing hot patch yet, but this is pothole season. This is,
Yeah.
when we go out. And of course, keeping up on your road repaving reduces your OE expenditures or keeps a lid on your OE expenditures because you need to do less pothole filling and patching. So, the other thing I want to point out there is with the storm sewer and drainage improvements, that's a bit of an increase compared to prior years as well. Again, when you start taking a look at the cost per linear foot of, let's say, replacing pipe, and then we have a number of head walls and outlets that need repair to conform with the stormwater management permit requirements. This is also something where we try to fund it annually and sort of look at our stormwater system like roads, something that needs to be maintained regularly. But it's also apparent that we need to increase that amount of funding per year in order to keep up. Now, the areas that we've been working on have been within the CDBG eligible area. So we've been very aggressive and very fortunate to get grants every year through the CDBG program that has offset a lot of our own cost for that. Matter of fact, I'm in discussions right now with the CDBG office about another unallocated funds grant from leftover money that they have that would allow us to accelerate finishing the Pleasureland area a year earlier than scheduled. So, we're trying to take advantage of those sources, but there's a lot of need out there in terms of, there was a lot of corrugated pipe put in this ground, and after 40, 50 years, the bottoms all rot out, so it all has to be replaced. Again, head walls have to be maintained, so there's a lot of infrastructure there to keep up with. And then for police, the main thing there are the patrol vehicles, and that is the funding proposed there is for the standard replacement of 2 vehicles to keep the fleet current. And we're proposing to replace a solar-powered speed trailer that was actually
Damage in an accident.
hit and destroyed. Yes. And we did it a while ago. We got some insurance money back, plus the deductible on that. So, okay. So overall, the total projected gross cost of the projected capital program, subject to further conversation, of course, is $4,260,500. Total cash required is $2,413,500. And about $253,000 of that would come from our existing capital fund balance, which is healthy, $1.1 million. It would still leave close to $850,000 in there. Should you have some sort of an emergency, again, we've seen that in the past. Let's say Allerman Brook, a storm comes in, does a lot of damage. You do an emergency procurement there to effectuate the repairs. It provides a fund there again, so that you're not impacting the budget in a subsequent year.
Now, this is a separate fund from other funds that we've discussed?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, and now I'm going to turn it over to David. We're going to talk about the revenue section a little bit and the analysis of revenues and surplus. David?
Yeah, so basically, we fund our budget through surplus miscellaneous revenue, not too much in terms of delinquent tax, and then the full tax levy. And you can see how they proportion out. If you go back 13 years to 2013, about 76% of the budget actually was funded by taxes. We're now funding just 72% of the budget through taxes. Biggest change there is on the surplus utilization. We're at a peak right now, and there is risk there when you fund that much of the budget there because you have to be able to replenish it. We've had some good years in terms of replenishment with a couple different revenues that we didn't anticipate or couldn't anticipate because of the way the state restricts you from doing those. Revenues, again, we're in very good shape. Looking out the next couple of years, we've got to bring surplus down a little bit. Now we have a surplus policy that's in place that guides us through that. So revenues.
The utilization of surplus in this budget is compliant with that policy. Again, it sort of sets a minimum and a maximum based on a percentage of prior year appropriations. The idea there being that you don't want your surplus to fall too low, that doesn't provide sufficient cash flow or reserves in for emergencies. And you don't want it to grow too large either and let it sit there when it should be utilized to fund projects, reduce tax impacts where possible. So it sort of provides a range there where we say, below that is too low, above that is too high. We sort of want to be in this zone. The amount in this year's budget is like right in the middle of that. So it's really a matter of what you're using your surplus to fund. All right. So it is something that we keep an eye on in terms of regeneration and where we think regeneration is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 years out. And I think we'll be good the next couple of years as Lennar builds out. But we do want to keep an eye on that and to the best of our ability, I think, start scaling back the use of surplus as we move forward after this year.
And maybe one of the things we end up utilizing at some point to reduce that debt. You're looking at surplus, you may say, okay, let's use more than the average. And you can use that to offset debt as we go.
And the policy, that's our policy, right?
That's correct.
Is there a state recommended? Is there,
There is nothing from the state different. GFAO is my organization. They want you to have one. They want you to manage it and look at it. Some will use just a straight percentage. They won't use a range. The one that we use, I think, is pretty good in terms of giving you some guidelines on how to manage it.
Yeah, it's definitely been working. I mean, since I'm on, I'm happy that we have this. That it keeps us honest. And,
it does.
And, yeah.
I can tell you, looking at other towns, when I've asked this question in the past, what do you do? How do you do it? Because I think there were a whole bunch of towns that did it all at once. Kind of, this was a best practice question, probably 13 years ago now, maybe, because they wanted towns to focus on this as a fiscal management tool. And a lot of towns weren't. Especially with the advent of the levy cap, it became more important to do that. And so we were one of the first towns, I think, to come up with a policy, and I know some other towns that modeled theirs off of ours, because I think it sort of struck a nice balance. And so the towns that I know of are generally the same, within a few percentage points. And if you look at, you can kind of Google what other towns do, nationwide. Again, it's a range, but I think we're sort of right there where we need to be.
Thank you.
And it's just a picture over time. We try to keep an ongoing look at what the impact to the residents have been in terms of their tax bill and the levy increase. And you can see what the high points are. For a while there, we had accumulated a lot of debt. We were paying it off in terms of the minimum payment on our notes. Finally, they came due, and you see that fairly significant increase back in 2020 to make that bond payment. That goes away in 2030. That was a 15-year bond. And then you can see again, we had some increases significant from solid waste, insurance, and pension in 22 and 23. We were fortunate that we had the reassessment shift some of that burden to commercial during a couple of those years. So you can see the difference between the levy and the residential tax bill wasn't as bad as it could have been if we hadn't been doing that ongoing reassessment. And then back down in 24, and then popped up again in 25 and 26, mostly based on insurance and the pension kick there. So you can see what it's been doing over the last few years. Now, over the last 15 or so, it's been at about 2.2. That's the average if you net out all of those increases. Over that same time, the last time we looked last year, CPI was a little bit under 3. So we were doing better than CPI, and we continue to do better than CPI for the last 4 or 5 years even. That's just kind of an ongoing picture of what the revenues have been doing. I talked about surplus. This is our surplus policy. It tells us where we should be. In terms of replenishing fund balance, you can see the things that drive it. Excess revenues, when we lapse prior year appropriations. And so this is kind of something, again, that Rich and I look at. We know what we lapsed this year, so we have an idea of what we'll lapse at the end of the following year. We can see where surplus regeneration is going to be. Miscellaneous revenues, they've been driven by a couple different things. This past year it was Lennar and permit fees being higher. 2-3 years ago it was actually interest. After COVID, our interest that we earned was down to like 0.25%. We can only anticipate what you realized the prior year according to the state. Following year, the interest rates went back up to 4. We had a nice about $800,000 windfall. So that's been kind of feeding our fund balance, allowing us to reutilize that surplus back into following year budgets and keep our tax rate impact as low as possible.
And just when you say lapse, what's the
So our budget is a 2-year budget on the appropriation side. You have the current year. This is right now we're working on a 2026 budget. At the end of the year, that'll become the reserve. You can't incur new expenses against that, but you'll pay down any open POs or any things that roll from professionals into the following year. At the end of the second year, anything that you haven't spent lapses to fund balance. Revenues, when you exceed your revenues, that goes to current year. So as soon as this year is over, if we bring in more money than we anticipated, it immediately goes to surplus and fund balance. And what does it mean to our residents? This is something we've been doing for the past 10 or 12 years. You can see what it's been looking like. This year, we've got a slight increase in the revenue of 3.5. The library is up by 11, almost 11.5. Everything else we're estimating at about 4.5. We don't know what the impacts are going to be until their budget gets finalized and they send us something over. But I imagine the school is going to be hit by the same thing we are in terms of health insurance, and those costs are pretty significant for them as well. Net impact to the resident, municipal portion only, is going to be, adopt this budget, around $111 per the average assessed home. Library be another 23 for a total of about 134 to the average home. Average home this year being about $678,000. So house is worth a little bit more, your increase will be a little bit higher. A little bit less, increase will be lower.
And the county, have they struck their?
County has not struck anything.
They usually wind up being the last.
They will be last.
Yeah.
They will be what we're waiting for. We will again plan on doing an estimated tax bill this year so we can keep our cash flow coming in. Our residents like getting their tax bills and paying us in August. We like that money.
Sometimes we have some issues, wrong people get the wrong bills or something with the estimated tax bills. Sometimes there's.
They didn't get the wrong bills?
No.
But the bills change.
Okay.
Because whatever we estimate will
And
be a
then-
guesstimate,
okay.
and when the final bills come out. A couple of years ago, we did not have all of the budgets in by the time we estimated. So there was some,
So it was-
fourth quarter was a little bit higher than we'd originally thought it was going to be.
Okay.
We might have to include some verbiage in the tax bill if we can about what the estimated bill is going to be, again, to remind people. I think that might help
Yeah.
solve some of the communications.
Yeah.
Everyone run to Facebook. They
Yeah,
get
we're on year
communications.
3, year 4 of the estimateds.
It doesn't mean people remember.
Right.
At least 4.
Yeah, but we get many fewer questions the last couple of years than the first year we did. First year, we had
Oh, sure.
lots and lots.
Sure.
But that's come down a little bit.
More people understand it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just to
Okay.
communicate it.
Yeah.
That's our story.
So before we move on to Peter to talk about the library budget and library operations, does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to touch upon before we move on?
No, just on a couple, I mean, we'll talk to both chiefs on the fire and police, just making sure everything's, appropriate with what they need to support the residents, right? Things are changing, going on, the vehicle costs and replacement, make sure everything's just on schedule as needed. That's all.
I was just wondering, the LoSAP, do we get any money from the state, or is LoSAP all on us?
Low stuff
It's all on
on
us.
All on us, okay.
And is this all going to change if the state budget changes?
Well,
Are we going to be doing this again?
So what was it, a couple of days after our finance committee meeting, I go to a meeting of my fellow Northwest Bergen administrators, and we hear that, well, there's word coming out of DCA to brace for cuts in state aid. Fortunately, in the governor's budget proposal, none of that materialized. So as of today, and we do have a statutory deadline on when we have to introduce the budget, there's the stated revenue is flat. There's, according to the governor's budget, it's proposed to be no change.
I have not seen anything official yet from the local finance
Nothing
board.
from the local
who
finance
directs
board or DCA.
And tells us what that's going to be. But we don't think it's going to change, so.
Please remind us when we have to introduce by.
Statutorily, it has to be by the first meeting after the end of March. We're shooting to introduce at the last meeting in March, on the 24th. That would put us in a position to adopt the second meeting in April.
All good?
Okay. If there's that, Peter, would you like to come up?
Hi, everybody.
Welcome back, Peter.
Thank you. You want to say anything before I get going?
Please, go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to start by reminding people that the Library Board of Trustees manages the library in trust, and that they have public meetings that are open to everybody. It's the second Thursday of every month at 7 o'clock on the lower level of the library. If you're interested, you can come by and you can listen to the meeting, or you can give your input. To the people at home that maybe aren't familiar with how library funding works in the state of New Jersey, you may be wondering why the library is funded at the rate that it's funded at, which is a fair question. So according to the statutes of the state of New Jersey, our budget is based off of the equalized valuation of our municipality. I think our CFO just said that the value is up, so as the value rises, so does our budget, and as the value falls, so does our budget. We've been on a pretty steady incline, I think, over the last bunch of years. Valuation keeps increasing, so our budget keeps increasing. So that's why you see the amount reflected in your bill that you see for the public library. That's how that works. It's unique in that regard, that it's a formula. So if I can just talk a little bit about what the library did in 2025. We had over 6,300 registered borrowers. We circulated more than 115,000 items, which is an increase from the previous year. We hosted a whole bunch of programs. We do that every year. We're better at doing that now since the building has been renovated not that long ago. We had over 52,000 visitors, which was also an increase from the year prior. We offer museum passes, library things, digital services. I'll get into that in a moment. We have a lot of things there at the library besides just books. It's a safe building, it's a clean building, it's comfortable, and there's a lot of space for the patrons to take advantage of, and nonprofits as well. We also just completed a room on the lower level that used to be a storage closet that really wasn't getting used very much, and we turned it into a classroom that we're going to be using through our new initiative, which is the OPL Academy, which will be geared at educational courses for children and for adults when we line up the right instructors for that. So I'll talk more about that as well. If you flip to the next sheet, you can see how our budget has changed year over year from 2025 to 2026. Full-time, you can see, is a little bit of an increase. The permanent part-time has actually gone down a little bit. For those who are interested, part-time employment at the library ebbs and flows depending on both our need and also on the people that we hire. Sometimes we hire somebody, we expect them to stay all year, they leave after 3 months. That's just sort of the way that it goes. General funds is the one that has the biggest discrepancy, and that's the one I'll talk about last. If you look at the other ones, liability, insurance, utilities, electric, natural gas, per Social Security, most of those costs are built in. They reflect the people that are working there, the cost of the utilities and that sort of thing. Well, if you look at on the right-hand side where everything is itemized, you can see how the values have changed, and obviously the largest increase for us is the general funds, where the money that's left over goes. That's the money that the Library Board of Trustees takes direct control of and then manages. So if you proceed to the next slide, what are the general funds? What do we use them for? What do we do with them? So that piece of there, for lack of a better word, that graph, gives you a visual display of where we put the money. And then on the right-hand side there, we have language that corresponds with that. So the largest slice is materials, and that's where we try to spend as much money as we can. So when we're talking about materials, what are we talking about? Yes, we still buy books. Yes, people still read books. Oakland, pretty good circulation in terms of the physical materials. That's for adults, that's for children, that's for young adults. Right? We also have movies on DVD. Not everybody is up on streaming. Not everybody agrees with the model of streaming. They don't want to pay every month, so they still take out DVDs. When people stop borrowing DVDs, we will stop buying DVDs, but to date, people still borrow them. Music, believe it or not, people in Oakland still get CDs. Again, it's one of those mediums that's died in some other places. It has not died in Oakland, so again, as long as people want them, we will meet that demand. We also buy video games, which are quite popular, actually. They're getting more and more expensive. I think that people appreciate that we buy them so that they don't have to buy them for their kids. So we have those in the young adult room. We have audiobooks that are still on CD, believe it or not, which again, we do have some older residents who really prefer a CD versus the new digital offerings, which I'll get into in a moment. We have a lot of resources that are web-based now. Okay, so we're talking about ebooks, downloadable audiobooks, movies, music, tutoring services, language service. That's all available for free with your library card. Anybody who has a Audible subscription, we have a better deal with the library. It's free. It's 10 automatic downloads a month. Every month you can take them with you through an app called Hoopla. You can travel with them. Again, it's 10 a month every month. You can front load them. You can do them all at once. You can do them when you want them. You can take them with you on vacation. It's all free with the cost of your library card. We also have Overdrive. Overdrive is the juggernaut in e-resources, specifically ebooks. I think they have 90 or 92% market share. We do work with them as well. There's a much, much broader breadth of collection there, but there's often a wait time, which any of you who are avid Libby users understand that sometimes you have to wait a little bit longer, and that's because you're sharing that specific resource with all of Burton County. That being said, the Oakland Public Library allocates money for just our own collection of digital materials through Libby, which is based almost exclusively off of the holds list. So when I look at a holds list, I look at the people in Oakland who want something, and then I purchase to alleviate the hold list. So we purchase additional copies that go to our patrons first. We also take advantage of a cost per circ model, which means if you want it, you check it out, and we get charged a flat fee for every circulation. It's not the best model, and we get taken advantage of a little bit, public libraries, specifically by Overdrive, and that's something that the library community as a whole have tried to confront, maybe through some legislation or something, how to get Overdrive to sort of stop kind of price gouging public libraries. But if we see, and we do, growth in use, the largest growth is among e-materials. So people are using more and more e-materials every year, and they want more. So we fund it more. We also purchase museum passes. I don't know if people don't know that. We have museum passes. They're free. You come in, you grab it, you use it, you bring it back the next day. We have Museum of Natural History vouchers that you can purchase for $7 each that get you admission to both the museum and the special exhibit. Those are totally worth it. If you've ever gone to the Museum of Natural History, the special exhibits alone are fabulous. You get into those with the pass. We also have the Intrepid, Storm King, Guggenheim, Morris Museum, I might be forgetting one, but they're all on our website. So if you go on our website, you'll see everything that we have there. So that's what we purchased with the materials fund. As we move along, Buckles. So Buckles is 78 member libraries, right? So any of you who are library users understand that you can walk into any Buckles library with your open library card and borrow anything that they have on the shelf. If you want something and we don't have it, you ask for it, it gets shipped to us. A few years ago, Buckles built their own delivery system outside of the state delivery system when the state delivery system stopped running during COVID, and there was no delivery for 9 months or whatever. Our system is a lot faster and more efficient than the system that everybody else in the state uses, and we pay for that, but you'll often get your materials the next day or 2 days, depending on where it's coming from. So if you haven't been taking advantage of that, I encourage you to try it. It's a great resource. Programming, which is the green slice there. So programming is something that has grown exponentially in the 11 years that I've been the director there for a couple of reasons. When I started there in 2015, we didn't really have any space to put programs. Those of you who were there or who were here and understood what the library looked like then, it was a completely different building. Since we renovated and we have all the spaces that we have, we really literally do hold hundreds of programs every year. I mean, we have them on the stage, we have them on the lower level, we have them in the makerspace. Any of you who are involved in scouting, you've probably taken advantage of that. To those of you at home who are never seen the rooms or never taken advantage of them, they're free to use for patrons as long as you're not conducting a business in there. And they're free to use for nonprofits, so if you want a room, just contact the library. There's a form on our website where you can fill it out. If you're an individual, you don't need the form, you just call us, you say, I'd like to use a room, and we set the room aside for you. We have a quiet study room, we have a local history room that does have local history materials in it for those of you who are interested in that, and a couple of other spaces that the public is allowed to use. So take advantage of that if you're interested. If you don't know what programs we have, I recommend just asking that we add you to the newsletter. It's a monthly newsletter. You also get some of that content if you're on the Borough newsletter, which we appreciate. Thank you. Otherwise, as we work through the pizza, we've got the building costs. So those are the costs to heat, to clean, to cool, to maintain. I love that building. It's an old building. It has a slate roof. It has a terrible HVAC system. It's got plaster and lath in the original building. So, sometimes repairs on that building and maintenance are a little bit expensive, but we try very hard now that we have the funding to keep the maintenance going so that we don't run into issues where something is a catastrophic failure and then we're asking you guys to bond for something. I did get ahead of myself. Oh, no, I didn't get ahead of myself, not yet. We also group into that cost. We also get audited annually. Occasionally we have legal fees. We pay for our postage and copiers and those types of mundane things that we pay for so we can do business day to day. The last slice in the pizza renovation, so this is not present every year. This reflects the cost to turn the closet into the STEM lab. If you're familiar with the library, you're going to see that room. It looks a lot nicer downstairs now. You can see through. It's quite beautiful. It will be a cornerstone of our new educational initiative. We self-funded that. We didn't ask the borough to bond for it. We budgeted our money, we saved, right? And we allocated because we knew we were having a good year. And also, the new Friends of the Oakland Public Library, who those of you at home, you're going to see the mailer, and those of you in this room as well, their fundraising, or our fundraising arm. They helped us to pay for that also. They do an incredible amount of work to help us pay for things like that, as well as furniture if we need it, as well as the Book Page magazine that we give away as well. They help us supplement the bestsellers, and they also help us supplement with the some of the museum passes. So the New Friends of the Oakland Public Library is a terrific organization, and every penny, right, comes back to the library and goes back to the residents in some form or another. Does anybody have any questions about anything that I've said?
No, but follow up, I think you'll get there. Is there anything you need?
No.
Right. So
I am extremely lucky. I want to say, obviously, the Library Board of Trustees, year to year, we try to be very careful with the money, even though we're in a place that's very good right now. We're always cautious. We understand that, again, our budget, being unlike other budgets, has the potential to go right back down again. And it has, historically. It's done this. So, we're never in a position where we're going to overextend ourselves. We don't want to create a situation where we're back here in a few years saying, well, we can't pay our bills, we need your help. We try very hard to avoid ever getting to that point. That is a point that we were at when the budget was terrible. We just don't want to end up there again. So we try to be very careful about the decisions that we make. I do want to, while I have a moment in everybody's ear, I want to just point out that every municipal department in this town helps us. Okay, everybody. I'm blessed to to have the cooperation that I have. And a special shout out to the DPW, who are incredible when it comes to the public library. I need something, they do it. And in many other towns, they got to call somebody and pay. I mean, the amount of work that they do for us and maintaining that building, it is very appreciated by us. We're very grateful to them for what they do. But really, everybody in town helps the library, they support us. We are extremely lucky. We need for nothing right now. We're lucky. If I could ask something of the public, it would be, if we're not doing something that you want, I would like you to tell us, because it is our job to do that. So, you know, if you come and you say, hey, I think you should be doing this, that's a good thing. Like, it's a suggestion box, right? I'm the suggestion box. Just suggest it to me, email me, come see me, or tell somebody at the library, we would like to see this. And we will see if it's something that we can do, as long as we determine it to be reasonable.
You had mentioned copiers in the stuff. Do you get that through the town, or do you guys?
No, we have our own contract, although in the past, I think we've used the same company. We're not using the same company now, but we may use the same company going forward to get a better rate.
That's what I was going to say. It just seems,
Right,
more
redundant, right, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the timing of us actually even having a decent, we didn't even have really a good photocopier, and when we got ours, it was out of sync, but going forward, yeah, it's something to think about. Anything you guys want to add?
No? Think
No?
Peter?
Okay, thank you all for having me here, and if you have questions that you didn't ask and you want to ask me, you know where I am at the library, and thanks for being home, for your support.
or at the rec field.
Thank you, Peter.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
See you, Peter. Thank you, Pete. All right. So,
Yes, that's what we have for this evening. Again, apologies, I think Wednesday is going to be a little bit heavier due to some scheduling issues, but we'll kick off on Wednesday with the Senior Center. As you go through this, in your own time reviewing these materials, if you have questions, if you want to sit down with us, of course, as well as supplement anything you want to dig into further, just give us a call and we'll be happy to do that. In the meantime, if there's no other questions, there's nothing further, David, and I have this evening.
all right. Well, thank you guys for everything you did tonight, and we'll see you on Wednesday. I want to wish everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day, and I got my tie on, and I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We need a first.
I forgot your man. So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next meeting will be on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.